Anyway, should we get started? So again, evening to everyone who may be here. I don't know if there's anyone here who's not been to any of these before. I will do the usual thing of just explaining that you don't just have to sit and listen. If you've got any questions you want to ask, you can just go right ahead and ask them. This is like the live Q&A before the live Q&A, really. Blizzard are doing their own this week. They're doing theirs on Thursday, when they won't have to compete with me, because I won't actually be able to stream on Thursday, because I've got a parents' evening. So I'll be talking at some of the parents of these kids who are always complaining. And and we can get started. I mean, there's various things we can talk about. There's lots of extra news has come out. There's so many people that have done interviews with Blizzard, it seemed, at BlizzCon. And then the information seems to have trickled out. It looks like they were willing to do interviews with all sorts of people. And also they did a load of interviews last week. So there's actually more information has come out of BlizzCon. I mean, most of it's still quite vague, but there has been more information than we were getting at BlizzCon, which is interesting. And and also, I suppose there's the PvP hotfixes that they've just put in. I don't know if North America's up yet. I know people were complaining. I'm blurry again. I know people were complaining just a short while ago, about an hour ago, that maintenance was still on, and you know, it was taking longer than usual. And I don't know whether that's to do with the World PvP hotfixes or something else. I jokingly said that they were removing gnomes from the games like I'd asked, and it was taking a little while because there's quite a lot of them. Yes, Clefado, this is my issue, because I can't stream on Thursday because I've got an open event, or an event at my work. And this is the annoying thing. We didn't kill Jane yesterday. We did better. We didn't get a new best, but we did better overall in terms of getting into phase 3 at least. We just died really quickly when we got into it. And I'm not brilliant at thinking with the pillars, I have to confess. But we have someone who's marked. As soon as I just thought to myself, do you know what, bugger it, I'm just going to stand on the marked person. Then it sort of seemed, well, one time they killed me. They got it wrong one time. But the rest of the time it was all fine. And I wish more people would just do that. So on Wednesday, we were going to be buggered this week. We were going to be absolutely screwed because our Holy Paladin was going to be absent Wednesday, Thursday. Well, there's no point. You're not even point in trying Mythic Kill Jane without Holy Paladin. But then he said it was fine for it. So tomorrow we go, and we've got to kill it because, as you say, this is going to have Shades of Illidan for me otherwise. Because in TBC, Illidan, in the guild I was in at the time, we had a night on it when we should have killed it. We were so close, should have killed it. It was really annoying. The next night I couldn't make it. Again, evening at a different college. Worked at a different college there. And they killed it. The little buggers killed it without me. I mean, I got to kill it the following week, of course. This was a time when we were, you know, able to kill these things much ahead of time. This time round, it would be annoying to miss the first kill. The problem is that I don't think there's any guarantee. It'd be sad if it was true, but I don't think there's any great guarantee that there would be a subsequent kill. Because if we kill it on Thursday, let's say we kill it on Thursday, that only leaves one more week to kill it and get the cutting edge. Now, my fear is we've made such a hash of this, such a monumental cock-up of this, that if we kill it next reset, we only have one more reset before Antorus. That's right, isn't it? Yes, that's right. Sure it is. And so we've got to get everyone in who missed the first kill. If we're honest, there's a reason why the people who will have missed the first kill missed the first kill. So it's not likely to go brilliantly. So it could be that we only actually get one kill in. I hope we don't. I hope we get, you know, the 2. I mean, even only getting 2 in, I can't remember a time since I came back. I mean, obviously I took that long break, and since I came back, I really don't remember a time when we'll have only killed a boss with just such a short period of time to go before cutting edge is no longer there. But anyway, oh Mahal, you just started using the chess legendary to one shot. Yeah, well, I'm saying that they've yeah, all the legendaries that are capable of quite a lot of burst, they've nerfed them for PvP. Because obviously, I mean, I've used the legendary chest as well. I have to say, I don't go out trying to gank people. But occasionally, I've sometimes used different things. And it is the Retribution Paladin legendary chest, which when you let it stack up, it means that your Divine Storm can do stupid damage. Absolutely insane damage. And then when you use it, it's got to tick up again. It takes a minute to tick up to max. And there have been times where, yeah, you know, I've built my stacks of Crusade up to full and just unleashed it. And if you've got several people attacking you, it's hilarious what it can do. Absolutely. Given that the majority of people who attack me are not well geared. Some are. But the majority are not. It basically just kills them. They just don't know what's gone on. It's just like 4 against 1 on this Paladin. And bang, gone. Dead. So on MMO Champion, they're planning to release beta early next year. Yes, that's right. Yeah, I saw that. I've just been doing my WoW Flash, which is not obviously going to be released till tomorrow. Indeed. So early next year, of course, could mean any time up to and including March. I still struggle to believe it won't be really early on because I don't see... You know, I think there's more to come in Legion than some people think because there's that raid that they're not saying anything about. Why didn't someone at BlizzCon ask them about the raid after Antorus? At Gamescom, it was... Someone asked... Who was it who asked? It was either Panzer from Wowhead or it was one of the Fat Boss brothers. I can't remember who. Someone asked about a raid after Antorus, and all Ian would say was, there's no more large raid, as in tier raid. There's not going to be a Ruby Sanctum type thing, but that everyone sort of texts that to me, and I would agree that basic... Fat Boss, thank you, Clavado. That basically means, you know, like a Trial of Valor type thing. 3, 4 boss, maybe 5. But there's not been anything since. Why didn't someone ask the question directly? Because obviously at Gamescom he wasn't prepared to say. Maybe at BlizzCon he would have been. I mean, or maybe someone did ask and he just wouldn't say again, so that's why it hasn't come through. But that would annoy me if no one asked that very obvious question. But, yeah, hi Sasha. Yeah, that's the thing. So there has to be more to come. I don't see that there's that much more to come. I mean, Legion was all about the Legion. In a month's time, the Legion's finished. All right, we've got to progress technically until it's really finished. But even then, they said a tier lasts 4 to 5 months. So 5 months down the line, sorry. Like April time, that's only, you know, maybe when beta's relatively new still. You know, they've got to do non-Legion based story in Legion. Surely they can only do that for so long. So, well, the thing is, Clefado, there were so many people interviewing them. I understand at the Q&A that they do that you're going to get a load of chimpanzees who ask stupid questions. Some people ask some good questions, and then some people ask what would be good questions if they asked it, if they thought about the way they phrased it a bit better. But the sheer number of people that have actually got to interview developers there, I think there's more than ever been the case. I think the developers, to be fair to them, have opened themselves out to be interviewed by all and sundry, not just the big streamers and YouTubers either. There's been some other ones as well, some, you know, some with a smaller profile. And, you know, they've done so many of these interviews, and I'm thinking, did no one ask that? Really? Did nobody ask? The questions are not handpicked because when you see some of these interviews live... Now, sometimes, of course, they will be really vague with their answers. They won't really answer them. But the questions are not handpicked. When you're interviewing someone, they've just agreed to be interviewed. They haven't gone through the questions in advance. That's the thing. But... Well, repeat questions, yeah. If you missed something that was announced at BlizzCon, I understand that. I get that. If it was new information at BlizzCon, I get it. What I don't get is when you ask a question that we knew about before BlizzCon. Yeah, but anyway. Or don't ask a question that we wanted to know before BlizzCon. But anyway, that's... Wowhead interview is all about pets and Pepe. They do like their Pepe. Peculiar, particularly... likes her Pepe, doesn't she? But yeah, so I don't know about that, but you know, you have to think there's got to be a good chunk left. But yes, the way it's looking now is that beta. The other interesting thing is calling it beta, because for Legion They had, I mean, generally speaking, what you understand by alpha and beta. Hi, Retropally. What you understand by alpha and beta is alpha is the stuff when the game's not ready, and mostly it's that internal testing. And then beta when it's sort of ready, but you're now wanting to sort of get to the nuts and bolts and fine tune. But obviously, you know, definitions can vary. So with Legion, it was very different to previous ones. You had, I mean, in WoD, I suppose there was a period of what you'd call open alpha. So the big streamers got into that, but that only lasted a few weeks and then it was beta. With Legion, you had this period of open alpha. Again, the big streamers got in first. And then a few weeks later, I got in and other raiders as well. So raiders got in then as the next wave. Not all raiders, but I got lucky. And but then, and I thought it was the same sort of thing. You know, after a few weeks, it would be beta. And it wasn't. This alpha period lasted for an entire half a year. Ages before beta came out. Or before they called it beta. This time round, it looks like they're going to just call it beta straight off the bat. So they're calling it beta. They're saying early 2018. And yes, they're saying they're hoping to release the expansion in 2018. Which sort of suggests, doesn't it? November-ish time, round about BlizzCon time maybe. Obviously, they can't release it at the period of time when BlizzCon is. Because they're at BlizzCon. They can't do it the week before because they're getting rid of it BlizzCon. They can't do it the week after because they're still hungover from BlizzCon. So, you know, that would mean late November, assuming BlizzCon's at roughly the same time next year. I don't know, it might not be. Maybe they'll move BlizzCon to, you know, to fit better with the release. I don't know. But either late November or early December or January. Maybe even not even 2018. That's a long time for Legion, isn't it? A long old time. I mean, when I think to initial expansions, I can't really talk about vanilla as such because it came out at a different time in North America and Europe. In Europe, vanilla was basically out for 22 months. Obviously a lot longer in North America. TBC was out for 22 months. I'm pretty sure Wrath was out for 22 months as well, thereabouts. I wasn't playing all the way through Wrath. And basically the expansions have tended to last a little under 2 years. So we can sort of say Battle for Azeroth isn't going to come out before September. At the September mark, like as of the 30th of August next year, Legion will have been out for 2 full years. So it's going beyond that. It's going over 2 years. So this is, I think I'm right in saying it'll be the longest, significantly the longest expansion there's been. So let's have a look. You think people wasted questions by asking about Classic WoW? I don't think it was even that. I think there was some people seemed to interview them on stuff that had nothing to do with Classic WoW and still didn't ask this thing. Again, I'm talking about interviews. I'm not talking about the Q&As. I'm talking about actual people who got to ask whatever questions they wanted. That this wasn't one of the top of the list. Wish we could get into beta if we pre-order. Well, even if they did that, you like the way these sort of games usually work. I've done these before where you pre-ordered a new MMO and you get into beta. Doesn't mean you get into beta at the start, does it? It means you get into beta at some point, usually a month before. That's the deal. You get in a month before. Sometimes you get early access, although Blizzard obviously don't do that. It is testing, yeah. And initially, you will know it's testing because nothing will work. You will get disconnected all the time. It'll be really slow. It'll be really bad. It'll be a terrible playing experience. It is actual testing. Sometimes, like, you have to remember, there's a tip actually for when you get into beta, if you get in early on. And that is the first thing you're going to want to do, of course, is to set up your keybinds. After setting up each row of keybinds, log out of the game and then log back in. The reason for that is because when you first get in, if you get in early, I've been in a few quite early on, it will not be stable enough to let you change all your keybinds in one go. You will get disconnected. And if you get disconnected, then it all gets wiped. You have to start again. So every couple of minutes, just log out and log back in. At least it's saved then. So, yeah, a little tip there if you get in. They are having a Blizz Dev Q&A, yes, this Thursday, so 2 days' time. So, yeah, absolutely, that could be one question. The thing is, though, with those are hand-picked questions. It would be much better if someone could have just actually had them say this thing. Classic servers to release. November 2019 will be a hell of a long way away. I know they said last week that they don't know whether it's going to be months or years. It's surely not going to take 2 years. That'd be madness. They can do it much quicker than that. They could easily do it much quicker than that. I'm fine, thank you, Pinky Tiger. Are you? So, you know, they've been pushing out content very quickly. Think they could speed up the beta process to make it come out quicker? No. They will want to get that out ASAP. It doesn't do them... See, the thing is, like, as I say, the schedule as we're looking at it now means that Legion will be the longest expansion there has been. I think I'm right in saying that. And when you consider that they're going to obviously attempt not to have a significant content drought at the end of it, it will definitely mean it's had by far the most content of any expansion. So we're just talking about Battle for Azeroth release, Pinky. So I don't think they wanted it to be the longest expansion ever. I think it's just going to be the way it works out. So I think they will release the beta when they can. Oh, hi, Cullen. From Canada. Oh, this is earlier for you. So if Battle for Azeroth is so far away, it would have been a great time to open the classic servers soon. Well, yes and no. Not everyone would be excited about them, though. That's the thing. There's no point in assuming that everyone who plays WoW now plays Legion and is looking forward to the next expansion is going to be equally looking forward to the classic servers. Some are, of course, but some are not. So, you know, it's a it reminds me a bit like in Cataclysm, where they introduced this annual pass. Was it Cataclysm? It was Cataclysm, wasn't it? Where basically you could pay for a year's subscription at a knockdown price, a year's subscription, and you got a free copy of Diablo 3. Now, at that time, I'd only just come back to the game, but I sort of knew I was coming back for the long term. So, I bought that anyway, not because I thought, oh, great value, just because I knew I was coming back for the long term. I'd been out in the wilderness, away from World of Warcraft. I'd come crawling back to the game. Entertain me, the other games can't do it as well. And crawling back with my tail between my legs. So I just bought the annual pass. I tried out Diablo 3. I wasn't that bothered about it. So that's something that, again, it will be the same thing with Classic. Right? It's not gonna distract lots of people. Do I think modern add-ons will trivialize the leveling and everything else on the Classic servers? It's a really good question as to what add-ons there would be. Yeah, because now obviously there were add-ons in vanilla. You had, the Blizzard right from the start of World of Warcraft have supported add-ons, and there was a lot of add-ons you could get. Not as sophisticated as now. It will be interesting because with sometimes when you have an add-on produced, Blizzard look at it and they think, do you know what? We don't like that we don't like your add-on doing that, and they basically make it so it doesn't work. They've done that recently, but they also did it in vanilla. There were times when, there was a thing, I remember a raid add-on where for healing purposes, what was it called? Was it emergency monitor or something? It meant if you were healing someone and before your heal got off, they suddenly got healed up to a certain threshold, say 90% of their health or something, it would cancel your heal as a mana saving thing. Obviously, Blizzard decided that's, not you playing the game because it's not giving you information and you're choosing to cancel the cast, it just sort of cancelled it. So they disabled that. There were a few things. There was also an automatic healing add-on, which I didn't use. I can't remember what it was called, though. But this was quite infamous, really. And all you did, you just pressed one button. One button, that was it. And you just spammed it. You didn't target anyone. You didn't do anything. It just automatically sought out. It's like a smart heal. It would seek out whoever had lost the most health and apply a heal on them. And it chose the heal to use, and it chose the rank of heal to use. So it's basically a one-button bloody heal bot. Absolute rubbish. But they obviously prevented that working at some point as well. So what will be interesting to note is with some of the more sophisticated add-ons we have now, will Blizzard decide that some of them, if they allow you to do something you couldn't have done in vanilla, just because the add-ons didn't have them at the time, like for example boss timers, boss mods did sort of come in. I mean, I became aware of them in Nax when some people in my guild wanted to use big wigs for Thaddeus, so people would go the right way around, although it wasn't really a problem for people. So I first became aware of that then. So boss mods were sort of coming in, but generally speaking, the idea of having boss mods with like timers and stuff like that didn't really have. Would they stop those from being a thing? I don't know. Would Blizzard actively prevent certain types of add-on just because, even though they're okay now, they didn't exist at the time, and some people might, you can imagine what it is, the die-hard vanilla players will be in a raid with some people, they might resent the fact that some people in that raid have got add-ons that just weren't available at the time. So that would be interesting. Already there's going to be one change, and that's logs. Kira, who does Warcraft logs, has said that they will support vanilla servers, so there will be logs for it, which there weren't at the time. Logs like World of Logs came in TBC, and then I think Kira's Warcraft logs came in MOP, I think, end of MOP. Were the fights in vanilla 1 or 2 minutes long? No. No, there were varying lengths, but some of them were long old fights. Some of them 10, 15 minutes long when you first did them. You know, particularly the more notable bosses, like Onyxia was quite a long one. I don't remember specific times, but 10 to 15 minutes was not unusual for like an end of instance boss, and other ones variable, but 1 or 2 minutes, no, longer than that. You know, a nice healing add-on named Healbot. You bind heals 2 different mouse buttons. Just mouse over the one you want to heal and click. That just sounds like Cleek. Cleek is like a mouse over add-on that has the benefit, unlike doing a mouse over macro, it has the benefit of it uses up 2 macro slots and you can macro whatever. Classic, yeah, you won't get the proper classic experience because, as you say, yeah, in vanilla, you were basically working out how to play the game yourself. So if you had any sort of theorycrafting abilities, you could work some things out yourself. And if you didn't, then you wouldn't. And it's certainly true that the vast majority of people didn't have a clue what they were doing. I didn't have a clue what I was doing until I actually got into raiding and started thinking about things. I didn't even think about things before I got into raiding. So, yeah, YouTube guides. I mean, again, all these things did exist then. You know, we had Thoughtbot and Alakazam. And we had YouTube videos. And there were YouTubers. But there was just nowhere near on the level we have now. What was the best bit of Vanilla WoW? The exploration for me. Something you cannot have in any expansion. There's no way of doing it because there aren't enough zones. You know, this model that World of Warcraft have, where you have a new expansion and you level up entirely on that new expansion's new zones. Which is why I wanted the full-on scaling, to be honest. But because it completely cuts out exploration. When I was playing WoW, I would get quests. Because the way it works now is you go to an NPC, you get a quest. And then all the NPCs in that area give you quests. And you quest in that area. You go around there, killing everything, looting everything. You go back to them, turn them in. They give you a quest to go and see someone over there. And then you go over there, same sort of thing. You just move from hub to hub to hub to hub to hub. Back then, hubs did exist, but you very often found NPCs that would send you right across the other end of the world. You might have quests that would send you to all 4 corners of the world. At low level as well. Like at level 20, I was sent all over the place for my level 20 Paladin quest. I was sent all over. You know, north of Kalimdor, I was sent to north of Eastern Kingdoms, south of Eastern Kingdoms, everywhere. So I must have quested in a dozen zones before I was level 30. Just because of that. And you cannot replicate that in an expansion. So that's what I most miss about that. Your guild is starting mythic raiding next tier. There's about 15 of us. that want it and 10 that don't. That doesn't sound like a recipe for success, does it? They've decided to stay with personal loot for normal and heroic and do loot council in mythic. Do you think that will work out? I wouldn't worry about the loot at all. In fact, if it would help sweeten the deal, I would even keep personal loot for the mythic, to be honest. If you've only got 15 that want to do mythic, that's not... You know, if you've got 25 people altogether, 25 people's okay as long as you've got that right balance and the right mindset. But 10 of them straight away don't have that mindset, at least, is what you're saying. It doesn't sound great. What it sounds like is you might end up in a situation where you can kill the first... Like, as has happened in every tier, every raid this expansion, you kill the first few, but then when it gets tough and people have got to go to a boss knowing full well that you're going to wipe all night and you're not going to kill it. You're not going to kill it that night. You're going to have to wait till the next night and maybe you don't kill it then. Maybe it takes a full week and sometimes longer when you get to the really tough bosses. And that's when you start to see if people have really got the mindset of putting up with it. And, you know, often, I mean, it sounds like straight from the bat you'd have 10 that would think no. But you'll just have to see how it goes. Yes, Verigun's Fist, that was it. I remember there was Ashenvale. You had to go to Blackfathom Deeps. It was actually just outside Blackfathom Deeps. Shadowfang Keep, yes. I remember that. There was some ogres in like Loch Madan. You had to go and nick some stuff off. I say nick it, take it back. Can't remember what else. Winter Spring all the way to Ongoro Crater, exactly, yeah. Yeah, I know. That's what I mean. There's so much exploration. Or anything that's... Like the elf, as I say, I always go on about this. The elf in Stormwind that was outside the Alchemists, in like the mage area. And he sent you to get some wyvern eggs from 1,000 Needles. So at that time, this was low level. So that meant getting yourself through the Deep Run Tram to Ironforge, going from Ironforge to Wetlands to Menethil Harbour, going across to Duskwallow Marsh, travelling the path there because there was level 30 odd spiders there, so very careful. You couldn't even mount at the time. You're running all this distance, by the way. You go all the way there. You were... Hang on, I've forgotten where I'm going now. Where did I say I was going? Oh yes, 1,000 Needles. So then you'd have to go into the Barrens, and then you'd have to go south. Then to get to the 1,000 Needles itself, you would have to be PvP flagged because the only way to get down, wasn't there? Or the only way I knew to get down was those Tauren lifts. Well, there's Tauren Guard there. So you could ignore them and not, you know, try not to get beat up by them. As a paladin, it was a bit easier. And get down that lift, but you'd be PvP flagged then. And then find your way to the place where you need to go. And you'd end up taking in... What's the other zone? There's another zone. I can't remember it, a horde zone. I can't remember what it's called now. I can picture it, but I can't think where it is. But well, there's loads of fire elementals and stuff like that. And there was like a goblin area as well. So there's also... Yeah, and one flight path per zone. If it was your faction's flight path zone as well. Otherwise, it might not be anything. So you're running. I mean, it wasn't just paladins, you know, as well. Like, I remember the Warlock, one of the Warlock pet quests involved going to the Barrens. I remember on my Warlock, yeah, being whispered by someone random who'd just been looking for someone in the Barrens, saying, can you summon me there? Stone Talon Mountains, thank you. Yeah, that's it. He said, can you summon me there? And I said, how am I supposed to summon you here? But that, again, was back in a time when people just didn't realise how things worked. Obviously, to summon someone, there was no summon stone either. To summon someone, you needed, was it 2 or 3 people? I can't remember. But you at least needed a helper. And if they saw you in a dress, they assumed you were a mage. I'm not even kidding. This is not me making stuff up. On my paladin, I was asked, this was when I was in Judgment, my Judgment set, I was asked to give someone a portal. As when I was on my mage as well, because the mage is the one alts that I actually leveled up to 60. I made so many alts, but the only one I actually got up to level 60 was the mage. I never used to hang around in cities on it because you would just constantly be spammed. Can you give me water? Can you give me food? Can you give me portals? Bugger off. So I used to go somewhere else. My portals were no use to me because I didn't dare go back to the city because I'd be spammed. Lumber from that boss in Dead Mines, was it? I can't remember that now. It may have been, yeah, that would have been round about the right level, wouldn't it? Yeah, it could well have been that. So, but yeah, I mean, that's what I miss most about it, that you actually go all over the place like that. And you can only do that in a game that has expansions if you have full-on level scaling. It's the only way. Like Elder Scrolls Online, you can do that because that's just the way that is. Could you actually earn gold and people paying portals? Yes, there was someone on my realm who in Ironforge, I've forgotten their name, but they used to do this thing in trade chat, so-and-so airlines, and they used to give you a portal. They'd wait for 5, because it cost a reagent as well. They were tight as we like. They would charge a gold, 1 gold. You could go wherever you wanted. They'd get a few people together that preferably wanted the same destination. And he'd even give you food and water. He'd conjure you some food and water, and he'd charge you a gold. Yes, so yeah, there was an entrepreneur on our server that did that from Ironforge. So yeah, people certainly did do that, but I can't be doing. I see, that's the thing. I don't actively make gold in the game. I never have. I just rather nothing. I just rather AFK. Now we've got the WoW token. I can occasionally just buy a WoW token. But even before WoW tokens, I get enough to get what I need, but I don't really go after making loads of gold. You're looking forward to the level scaling most. I am. It doesn't go as far as I would like it to, but it is a massive, massive improvement. Really is a massive improvement. So I am looking forward to that. The other the thing I noticed is they said, like, when it comes in, WoD and Legion will still be as they are now. Even though scaled, which is obviously not new for Legion, but it will be new for WoD. What I asked, and I didn't get a reply to this on Warcraft devs, maybe it'll go in for the live Q&A, is when the next expansion comes out, Battle for Azeroth, and Legion is no longer the current one, will they change it so that Legion and WoD are both 90 to, oh no, is that right? 90 to 110 instead of, at the moment, it's just going to be WoD 90 to 100, Legion 100 to 110. Yeah, I think so, Cullen. I think they would consolidate. But I'd quite like an answer on that. I mean, it's not desperate, but, you know, that's what I hope they would do anyway. I was hoping for, I wasn't necessarily expecting 1 to 100 scaling. I was hoping for it. I was hoping that you would get scaling on all previous expansion zones for the previous expansion's level cap, so that way you're still forced to level up the latest expansion in the new expansion zones. That way you don't miss out on the essential storyline, but at the same time, you know, everything else you can, because what it allows you to do is to miss out crap things. That's what you want. Levels, you want scaling for 2 reasons. First of all, so that you don't find yourself in the situation where the quest line you're on just goes green or grey, because either you're just doing it really efficiently and leveling really efficiently, or you've done a dungeon and you've come back a couple of levels higher. So it prevents that. But also, if there's something you just don't want to do again, like, I'll be honest, I've done TBC enough. I don't need to do that again. I don't really want to do that again. But that being said, I've also done Wrath of the Lich King leveling quite a lot as well. I'm not overly keen on doing that again. But if I leveled up another character all the way through, I'm doing one of them. Because you can't get away without both. Whereas I wouldn't mind doing more Cataclysm. Because I wasn't playing the game when Cataclysm first came out. So I haven't leveled that many characters through that. And I haven't done all the zones. I did hardly anything in Oldham. You know, so there's actually quite a lot of stuff in Cataclysm leveling zones I haven't done. So it would be new to me. I wouldn't mind spending more time in there. Do the crafting and gathering items scale? I don't think they're doing anything extra with the profession side of it as yet. The correct abbreviation for Battle for Azeroth. It'll be whatever people call it. I think BFA is going to catch on. Personally. Do you think the mastery will be a stronger stat for rep pilots in the next raid? Yes. It won't just be a stronger stat. It'll be the strong stat. Get it. Get lots of it. Well, it's their own fault. People will use... Because you've got to remember, when you're talking about online stuff, it's the typed word that is most prevalent. BFA is a lot shorter than any other abbreviation you can give it. That's what people will call it. People are also used to giving it an abbreviation based on its initials. Legion was the only one where they couldn't do that. So, although battle is actually quicker to, or as quick at least to say that as BFA, when you're typing it, BFA is quicker. So I strongly suspect that's what it will become known as. But we will see. As it stands, though, there's virtually no danger in the world at all, so it's a bit odd. Yeah, well, that's... Yeah, that's the other thing as well. You can sometimes miss from levelling. If we go back to a zone like Duskwood on our mains, will all the mobs be scaled up to 60? Yes, you would assume they'd go to 60. Which makes no difference for level 110s, does it? A level 60 will die in one shot, just like a level 1 will. Or at Duskwood, it would have started like level 17-ish, wouldn't it? So yeah, Duskwood will be like level 60. The thing is, though, when you talked about the professions, the interesting thing is, what happens when you skin the beast? What does it give you? What sort of leather? Because with vanilla, of course, you had different types of leather. It wasn't just one leather associated with that expansion. It was like lots of different levels worth. So that would be interesting. Because there has to be a way to get like the crap light leather and things like that and medium leather. So is the leather you get going to be based on the mob or based on its level? So another question no one asked. Although I'll go easy on that one because I didn't think of that one until just now. So, oh yeah, Catechism. I forgot about that. Cata, yeah. I wasn't around at the time. I wasn't around when it was being announced, you see, so I didn't really think about it. You may have capitalised the O for mop. I didn't. Whenever I type out mop, it's with a small O. So I spell BFA with a small f. I don't think Legion was an abbreviation for Legendary Ian, somehow. It's lovely to think that, but I don't think that's true. I would, yeah, agree, Mahal, that it should be the mob, because otherwise, yes, you find it then basically impossible to get those things. But that being said, again, I remember Elder Scrolls Online, which I play, which does have level zone scaling as well. In that game, where it is properly all scaled, it's very, very difficult to target the gathering of low level materials, even when you go to a low level zone, because predominantly what you find is stuff that's designed for your profession level. The modern WoW community is planning a boycott of WoW Classic to try and force Blizzard. No, because that's a silly thing to do, because nobody that's working on World of Warcraft has anything to do with WoW Classic. There's no one, 0 people have anything to do with it. It's not stopping any focus on core WoW. The new team is, I mean, that's something I talked about a year ago. If they did it, they would have to have a new team, which is exactly what they've done, because it's the obvious thing to do. No one. Ian Hazakostas has nothing to do with it. And he is basically the most senior obviously, there are more senior people than him at Blizzard. But in terms of World of Warcraft, effectively, he's the one overseeing the projects. And anyone below him is not on it either. No one is on WoW. So, they're not really taking a small team off Core WoW. They don't need to. There's no point in. There's 0 point. What they've said is they're going to talk to the odd person that worked on it there, that's still there, to ask about opinions, but they're not actually working on it. It's not taking any resources away. They're chatting to them at break. It's like the equivalent of the person who made up Hearthstone, isn't it? They did that in their own time. These guys do it in their own time because it's something they're excited about. So there's not going to be anyone working on it that's on current WoW. If I was going to support any sort of action against Blizzard in terms of wasting time on Core WoW, it would be on moaning about developers that when they're told a year before they bring something out that it's not going to work, and they keep on with it anyway, and then actually when it goes live realise it's not going to work when we told them a year ago. That's the action I would support. But anyway, that's my view on that one. Well, you have that opinion, and you can come back in 2 years' time, and then we can discuss that. The community is not fractured on how to implement the 2004 changes. The classic WoW community is maybe fractured on it. That's not the same as the WoW community being fractured on it. But you can say that in 2 years' time. You're not. I don't think. I'm certainly not convinced about that. I see no. Even if the classic WoW project fails dismally, I see no downside to it, because at the moment the classic WoW project doesn't exist, and then it will exist. So even if it's terrible, it's not worse than nothing at all. We support it because it's an element of the game. It's not taking anything away from World of Warcraft. Also, marketing. What marketing does it need? It needs no marketing. You don't even know what they're intending to do in terms of releasing it. It might be a completely free project. It might be something that's part of the normal WoW subscription. There doesn't need to be any marketing of it. The marketing can be done by the people talking about it. All those people are separate. They've said it's a separate team. None of those things have got anything to do with World of Warcraft. Yeah, so I've sort of talked about that before, that Ian's first full one. I mean, as people pointed out, it all depends on exactly when it started, because Battle for Azeroth, they said it basically started when Legion came out. And so, and Ian Hazzikostas was made game director very, very soon after Legion came out. It was within a few months, wasn't it? It was still, I think, during Emerald Nightmare, as I recall. I think it was before Trial of Valor. So it would be his first one. And this is what I've said as well. Because it was quite clear, even when he was made assistant game director, I think you noticed things. I think he made mistakes. But I think one thing, it was quite... something changed in terms of the attitude for... like the Q&As. I mean, these live discussions that Blizzard do, the developer Q&As, that is his, it sounds to me, because that came in... he was basically plugging that. He's the one who does most of them. So, and some of the things he's said as well just also sounds like they are interested in revisiting ideas and maybe even changing it. Tom Chilton is still at Blizzard. I can't remember what he's working on. It might be Overwatch. I don't remember. But yeah, it will be the one that he will have sort of taken through. My main issue is that what he needs to do, and what I think discovered at Legion, is he needs to make sure that the senior designers are coordinating properly and not keep hiding behind this, oh, it's a team effort. Of course it's a team effort. It's a team effort in all workplaces, but you still need coordination. We know that the coordination has been poor in a few regards. Tuma Sargeras highlighted that. One was the fact that it was very overtuned because they didn't trust their own internal team. They've admitted that, so that hopefully won't be an issue now. We know that there wasn't any coordination between the boss and counter design teams because we had all these soak mechanics, which if they'd have just had all these soak mechanics and they'd have just turned around and said, you know what, soak mechanics are really useful, then that would have just been us saying, yeah. But he actually said, oh yeah, that's because the different guys all put soak mechanics in independently of each other. Well, that's saying that there's no one going around checking. That means there was not a single person at Blizzard who coordinated between those different teams. Not one. Well, that needs to be put out of there. And the other thing I always bang on about, the one team on World of Warcraft that will always get stick, so I have some sympathy for them, because there's like, if you compare, say, and it's the class development team, the class design team, and if you compare the class design team with the art department, for example, the art department will always get praise. And the reason they'll always get praise is because their work is equally valuable to everyone that plays the game. The class design team will always get stick, no matter how good they are, because you are appreciating or not 1/12 of their work. The class you play as your main is the one that you get to understand really, really well, and you see all the problems with it as well as all the good sides to it. And when you're looking at the problems, you see all the benefits of the others and without realising what their problems are and the rest of it. So you'll always get stick. But the class design team, I think, should coordinate with the encounter design team. Because it's all right saying that, oh, you know, we've balanced all these things, we've balanced utility, we've balanced damage, all the rest of it. But you've got to take into account the actual... you've got to take into account the actual encounters, you know. I mean, when I was doing a video, it's actually not coming onto YouTube until Thursday, but it shows the sim DPS charts for Tuma Sargeras at the start of Tuma Sargeras, and it had rogues fairly low down, but rogues were hugely desirable in Tuma Sargeras. Again, not taking into account the individual encounters. Oh my god. They don't have individual people on individual classes. They've said as much. And we also know there's a senior class designer. So, oh my God, though. Frankie Tanky, you're welcome to join and talk about this if you want. You are going to have to stop about the classic servers though. Yeah, the Q&As have been really good. I've quite liked those. And they have sometimes they've actually sometimes tackled questions that have been quite tricky. I think they haven't always shied away from them. You know, obviously the questions that we'd most want answered are not you. They obviously do sort of gloss over a little bit, but they have answered. I think they've been quite frank about some things. I think Ian in particular has been frank about some of the failings that they've realised, which is good. My issue is, I mean, some things will just go wrong. Like, you know, any of us, if we were there and we thought we knew better, we'd make mistakes as well, maybe more than them. But there are some things when you're being told by is the downtime still on in North America? I heard it was going on for a fair old time. Is it still not? Is still maintenance still on in North America right now? Oh dear, it's taken a while. But yeah, sorry. So, I've forgotten it now. What was I talking about? Yeah. So they've been quite frank about the odds, but where they go wrong is where the whole community of something says this thing is bad, it's not going to work, and they just stubbornly refuse to accept that. That's just silly. You know, if it's something that's subjective, fair enough. But if someone's going to say, look, this is not going to work because of now. Oh, hello. Veggie meat something is doing. You're doing something, but my Murloc box isn't big enough. Too late now, isn't it? Apparently you did something though. Do I remember seeing any gnomes in the Warcraft games before WoW came out? I don't recall. I couldn't swear. Maybe there were some gnome units with... No, because dwarf units were part of the human thing, really, in Warcraft 3. I don't remember any gnomes. It's a long time since I played Warcraft 3. There were none in Warcraft 1 and 2. I can't swear to there not being any in Warcraft 3. So, 2 more hours at least. Maybe they are getting rid of gnomes. Maybe they are. But no, as I say, it may be that there was a unit or something. They obviously weren't a race. But then, to be fair, most of them weren't. There was only 4 in Warcraft 3, weren't there? Was there an... No, yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, in terms of actual gnomes, I don't remember any. I remember there was a pun, though, for the dwarfs in the gyrocopters in Warcraft 3. Because there was one call that they would give that this Warhammer cost 40k. Which is a Warhammer player at the time. I thought was funny. The rumour is the extended downtime is for the world boss spawns. Oh, for the 13th anniversary event. Oh, yeah, that's round about now, isn't it? Oh, right, I remember. Yes, that's it. They're going to be releasing... Is it all the vanilla world bosses, or is it just going to be like Kazakh and... Hold on a minute. Where are they even going to put these? Because they've changed the topography. Kazakh was round about Blasted Lands area, but in an area that doesn't really exist now. But I suppose they could put it somewhere. You had... Was it Azeragos, who was in Ashara, that dropped the really nice katana-type sword. I suppose there was the... I wonder if the Dragons of Nightmare would be in. I don't know. Just a question out of the blue. In Mythic Plus, AoE Rep Palia go with Final Verdict, Fires of Justice and Divine Hammer. I would say Great Judgment. Yeah, I wouldn't use Divine Hammer, personally. I tend to go for Greater Judgment where trash is going to be more of a thing. And I go with my normal single target thing. For like yesterday when I did a Mythic plus Niltharian's Lair, it's tyrannical, so I just went, you know, Blade of Wrath and Zeal. But when trash is going to be more of a thing, I go for Greater Judgment, and I still stick with Blade of Wrath. I don't really vary it a lot these days. Like Divine Hammer's just, it's just going to be crap. You need. I mean, it's all right for. It might still be all right for like Arcware stuff, but I think you get more benefit from using Greater Judgment. And of course, you definitely will in the next tier. Consecration is a problem because you're always on the move. I suppose if it's on higher keys, Consecration is going to look better because you can't move around. No, we didn't kill Jaden. No, we got into phase 3 more often. The problem was we were wiping. When we get into phase 3, we're wiping immediately. So bad. So bad. We'd better kill it tomorrow. I need to just say to people, stop dying immediately. Because it was literally the case. We're getting to phase 3, immediate death. Dead. Like, stop it. Even I wasn't dying at that point. I was pretty bad at it at the time before. Heard a couple of people saying Wake of Ashes is going to play Holy Wrath. No one knows that. There's only one Retribution Paladin that would know either way, and he's not saying. That's not working at Blizzard. Basically, they're only saying this because that's where it was for the BlizzCon stuff. I'll keep saying it again. The BlizzCon stuff, because people got to play Battle for Azeroth, they had to come up with a post-artifact set of abilities. So they just made something up. It doesn't mean to say... Solsasko won't say. He'll know. But he's not saying. He's not allowed to say. I mean, those are the only people that know, by the way. It's actually quite funny. Sometimes people think that like big streamers and YouTubers get inside knowledge. They get no inside knowledge. Blizzard have got no interest in giving them inside knowledge. They use them for marketing purposes. By definition, when they want them to know something, that's when they want it in the open. The only people that don't work for Blizzard that will ever get inside information are the very senior theory crafters whose opinions are being sought on, is this going to work? Now, those opinions are not always respected, I think, at times. Because, as I say, there's no way all the arse brain fart attempts at like Greater Blessing of Might or anything like that got Silsakra's seal of approval. But yeah, the senior theory crafters for each class and spec, the very senior ones, usually like 1 per spec, will have inside knowledge, but they won't say anything because they're not allowed. Because it's inside knowledge by definition. You're not allowed to make it open knowledge. Yeah, but that's been told when you're at BlizzCon. You know, that's like saying, oh, do you know that guy who's just walking onto stage? He's about to announce the Classic WoW. You know, you're being told at the same event it's being announced. That's not really anything in advance, is it? That's just giving you a bit of chance. You don't have to think of something on the spot when it is announced. I mean, you know, I'm talking about but he would never be given any actual inside knowledge. He gets knowledge when they want it to use it for marketing, because that's what I mean. That's why they don't really have to spend an awful lot on marketing certain things, because we do it for them. Which is why they're so good, because not all game companies are happy that people stream their stuff, by the way. Blizzard are always they're very, very pro community, which it has to be remembered, because, you know, they see the mutual benefit in it. Don't go Greater Judgment and Divine Hammer, though. No. If you're going to go Divine Hammer, you really should take Fires of Justice. But I wouldn't take Divine Hammer. I would take Greater Judgment, and I would take Blade of Wrath, and generate Holy Power quicker, and fire off more Divine Storms. So yeah, the people that actually have... So if anyone sort of claims to have insider knowledge and tells you what it is, they're lying, because they don't. Anyone who does won't say anything. They'll drop hints. They'll tell us, oh, there's something coming, and then not tell you what it is. That's how it'll actually work. So... Oh yeah, that'll just stir up. He wasn't told before he went. He was told when he was there. I mean, anyone can say that. You're going to a BlizzCon. Well, first of all, you're going to a BlizzCon. Obviously, there's going to be some hot news. But you're going to a BlizzCon specifically where you know the next expansion is going to be announced. You know, you don't have to be clairvoyant to know that there's going to be some big news coming out of it. You will do more AoE DPS, yes, by firing off more Divine Storms. So, yeah. I mean, I think they would all do that. I mean, you can understand why. I mean, you look at... Obviously, Asmongold is not as prolific in terms of the YouTube videos, but look at the people who are. So, Balula, for example, and... Thete and Evertal, actually, now they've shot to stardom the last year, haven't they? And Preach. Those guys, if you look at the videos they've done just on BlizzCon stuff, they've done loads of them, and look how many views they're getting there. So they know they can bring out a video on like a little individual section, separate videos for all of them, and they'll all get hundreds of thousands of views. They're, you know, and this is the time. As a World of Warcraft, a big YouTuber, you're absolutely minted, because you've got the trifactor. You've got the fact that you've got this event at BlizzCon where they're going to talk about lots and lots of different things. They are, I will say, they have clearly, it's obvious to me, they have clearly looked, they've really taken YouTube, they've analysed YouTube quite severely. I think they're quite clever, and they've had a real plan to go at it, and they've done it very professionally, and they've built that channel up extremely quickly, knowing exactly what they were doing. But anyway, sorry. So yeah, so you've got the trifactor. You've got the fact that at BlizzCon you're going to have lots of information, and obviously I just ram a load of it into one video. But, you know, when you're making money out of it, you can chunk it into lots of smaller ones. The fact that you're going to get a lot of views anyway, but also the fact that it's November. Now, for those who don't do anything on YouTube, November is payday. It's where you get the maximum amount of ad revenue for your content. So if November also happens to be the time when you can bring out loads and loads of videos and get more views than you normally get, you're making thousands for a week's work. So those guys will have all made 3,000 or 4,000 grand in dollars just for 1 week's stuff. I didn't actually benefit really when I got, because I got into alpha quite early on last time. It didn't actually seem to benefit my channel at all, I have to say. But a lot of that will be me being stupid and not knowing what I was doing. Because with most of my YouTube stuff, I've learnt things slowly over time. Because, as I say, unlike what I reckon Talise and Evertel have done, I think they've properly analysed it, they've properly learnt what to do and applied it all properly. I've sort of largely made it up. And I've just done stuff and not been too clever about it a lot of the time. So it will be interesting if I get in early next time, if I'm able to capitalise on it a little bit more. Or do I just have to plod on not getting beta access? Because I've been lucky in the past. There's no guarantee that luck will hold. And it could be argued in the past couple of expansions I've got early access because I've been in a high achieving guild. Well, I'm not anymore. So I'm completely up to dependent upon luck. The chance to reset on Blade of Justice, yes, with Blade of Wrath, sorry, no fear. Yes. You use it, basically use it, spend it, use it, spend it, use it, spend it, as far as possible. Pure single target, final verdict, zeal, Blade of Wrath, yeah, all that stuff. And see, that's the thing, right? If you really want to grow a YouTube channel, you absolutely do the content that people want to see. But for me, I need to do the stuff that I also think is valuable. I don't want to do anything that could be misleading, for example. You know, I want to be quite clear about what I'm doing. And I also want to do something, because if it's on something that you just think people want to watch, that video will take a lot longer to make than on something you really want to do, because you've got an element of research into it, because you're doing it on something you're not actually really thought about in any great detail. So it'll take longer to make. And just to sort of show what an effect is, I mean, you'll notice there was no video yesterday and there's been no video today, apart from this. And there would have been ordinarily, but because I lost 24 hours of my weekend this weekend having to reset Windows 10, that put me behind. So it's not like, you know, when you're full-time or when you don't do a lot else outside of work, you know, you can have more time to do these things. I don't. So if I lose a day of a weekend, I've lost, you know, at least 2 days worth of videos, potentially 3. Yeah, see, that's the thing though, Kisasha. I don't want to do anything that might be... I mean, inevitably when I do any sort of guide, it will be wrong, because Blizzard will bloody well change it the next day. It's what they do. But I try and avoid it. Like, I could come out right now with a load of Sims on... well, I have actually funny. I've done a video with looking at Sims of tier 21 stuff, but that's to prove a point that you shouldn't be looking at them. In terms of actually, I could come out with a video this week that says, okay, these are how all the classes and specs are looking compared to each other, and I'm sure it would be the first video that gets 100,000 plus views. I'm sure, like I don't, but it would be dishonest. I don't like that. So I'm not going to do that. Even though it's tempting, because you know what's happening at the moment when I look at my most viewed videos? My most viewed one is one that I knocked up in a Sunday afternoon. It's really annoying. On patch 7.2. My second most viewed one is the one I did on Lord of the Rings Online. And the annoying thing is, obviously that one I did on patch 7.2, that was useful for about a couple of weeks. It got a stupid number of views for me in a couple of weeks and then nowhere. The Lord of the Rings Online one, people keep watching it right now. It is almost caught up. My number, in a couple of weeks' time, or at least in a month's time, my #1 most viewed video is going to be one that's not even on World of Warcraft. That's really bad. I reckon I've got 2 weeks to make one that's going to go viral, and I can't do it. It's not going to happen. But yeah, in my case, Colin, I think they were very clever and very determined to build it up, and they've done everything right. They've properly analysed it. You know, they've been very clever about it. Whereas I just tend to make stuff. In between times, I will try and find time to think about methodology and what I'm doing, but I don't spend as much time on the thumbnail. I know I should make thumbnails better, but I like to spend the time on the content and not so much on the other stuff. But I know I have to if I want to make it grow. So maybe more for 2018. I mean, I'm not going to leave it till then. I've already started making a few changes now, but I don't want to do anything mad. Well, this is the thing, Aaron. Yeah, you say the top 10 things from vanilla. This is where I've got a problem. I was coasting on my channel for quite a while. At the start of the year, if I'd have done that video, top 10 things I miss from vanilla, at the start of the year, it would have got 10,000 views. I've let my channel slide really this year and coast a bit. So that's why I'm sort of trying to get hold of it and get it back in the right direction. But it's like starting again, really. Video about Ret Paladin now is interesting. Well, I can't do a video about Ret Paladins in BFA because I don't know anything about them. No, I know one thing about them. It looks like they want to nerf Blessing of Freedom. That's all I really know. Top so many videos usually get crazy views. I did, well, funny you should say that. I did actually start to do a little bit of a series of them, but I don't want to get in. And then I thought to myself, I don't want to be doing this on a regular basis, because then you get to a situation where you're just coming up with crap ones because you can't think of anything for that week or that fortnight or that month, whatever it happens to be. And then that's when you're on your slippery slope. So you should just do them as and when you think of something that's good. Did not get the single target talents. Okay. Yes, those single target talents were the right ones. Yes, no fear. Oh, when I'm in beta. Oh, yeah. Well, when I was doing Legion Alpha, I did, every time there was an update, I did a video on it for Ret Paladins, which for most of the Alpha seemed to be once a week. But yeah, I did do one. Every time there was an update, I did an update video on what the changes were. But it didn't get a lot of views. But again, that was potentially me. Because you've got to think about it this way. You do a video, doesn't matter how good the video is. You do a video, how are people going to come across it? And it's that side of it that I wasn't really doing very well. I'm not saying I'm doing it. I'm doing it a bit better now because I'm paying more attention to it. But it's still not. It takes time, I think. No, well, the execution sentence, no. Omits that completely, under all circumstances. I use it every now and then for very niche situations, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. Execution sentence is fine for single target bosses if they don't last very long. Did Going On Bay's podcast help? I can't really tell. It didn't make a noticeable effect on the number of subs I got. Like, I didn't see any jump up in activity on my channel. So you could guess no. At the same time, it may have been that I was due for a slump in my channel and actually he just leveled it off. So I don't really know. Yeah, I suppose execution sentence might be alright for PvP if people are going to keep running away from you. I don't really know. I can't really comment on PvP, what's useful for that and what's not. Ret Pally does remain one of the most popular specs in the game, certainly. I think the gameplay's quite nice. It's alright. It's alright. For me, it's the only issues with it in terms of functionality, not so much how it plays. It all plays fine. It's reasonably enjoyable. It's not an annoying spec. I mean, the judgment from Legion was not great, but you know, you get used to it. Yeah, but so yeah, I am looking at a very near future where my most viewed video is has nothing to do with WoW. It's not even a game that I'm playing at the moment. It's one of, again, I'll play a bit more at Christmas. It's one of those where I don't get time to play it every week even. Because it's such a very grindy game. You can't really just pick it up for a few hours now and then. And now that I can play Star Wars The Old Republic again, that's like 4 MMOs. I haven't got time to keep 4 MMOs on the go. Need to win the lottery. Oh, Tide responds to criticism, Ret not doing enough damage, but you have the Ashbringer. Well, the damage is fine, I think. The damage is fine. It's more just the minor stuff. But I've noticed, of course, they've said in an interview that they're basically going to increase defensives on some people. They've broached the situation where they've sort of suggested that the people who at the moment don't have very good defensives will get better defensives. Which I then ask the question, does that mean they're going to separate it out from this nonsense they came out with in Legion, that defensives and movement speed should be tied, and if one is good, that the other should be bad? So, again, another follow-up question that was not asked. That's what happens when you get a disc priest to interview someone. Do I think ESO would be more played if it allowed recount? It does allow recount. I've not used recount in it, but I'm pretty sure there is an add-on called recount in it, which I guess does the same thing. Although I'm not an expert on ESO add-ons. The only one I really use is the Sky Shards one. What would I recommend? Army of the Light Rune or Flask and food for raiding? I would recommend all of those things for raiding, yes. Monks are a reasonably fun class for all of the roles, I think, yeah. Healing, tanking and DPS. Hi, Lefisa. Oh, did they? I don't know, Kasasha, then. I really don't know about ASO add-ons because I only play casually, there's no point in me having them, really. You know, I have an add-on for the Sky Shard so I can find them. That's about it. Oh, it's like that, is it? You can see your damage but not other people's. Right. Okay. There's a very negative... I mean, the thing is, like any stats, I suppose... There's a lot of benefit to it, and there's a lot of negatives to it as well. The benefit of it is in terms of sensible people, then damage meters and stuff like that allow you to improve your performance. The downside is it allows you to beat people with a stick when they're not doing enough damage, when perhaps they're not supposed to, perhaps they're the one dealing with the mechanics, and they're actually playing better than you. But, you know, it doesn't show up in the damage meters. So there's pros and cons to whether you allow damage meters in a game, in a multiplayer game or not. And I'm fairly neutral on it myself, because I see the pros and the cons. You pass your trial in your first raid guild. That's good. They don't mind you. Well, people do swap classes for expansions. That's known. So usually just get in early. It's quite common for people to do that. You've got 953 item level in bag, 947 equipped, blimey. I've got like 942 equipped or something. Well, it depends. I sometimes change things around. I think about 942 is what I've got. If you have a heavy armor sorcerer in ESO using a bow, I'm not surprised because you want medium armor, don't you? Stamina build. With a bow. But anyway. I'm just gonna... No, there hasn't been anything new. I'm keeping checking as well to see, because I want to check if they are going to make any changes to the tier 21 sets, because there is a video that I might do. I'm not going to say anything about it because I might not. It depends on what time I get to do with the tier 21, but I don't want to do it before they've made changes. But then the problem is they could always make changes and then they make more changes later on. That would be annoying. Did I hear that Amazon is going to make a series set in Middle Earth? No, I didn't know that. set before the events of Lord of the Rings. I assume you don't just mean The Hobbit. Do you mean like in the Second Age or something? Or the first... the Second Age was actually quite boring, wasn't it? What do you mean First Age stuff? Well, good luck with that, Grexor. I've tried getting people to turn their damage meters off as well, but it doesn't happen. It's never going to happen. So, a series set in Middle-earth, is this a television... Is it like a live-action series or animated series? Oh, right, there's no details yet. But no, I didn't know that. That would be interesting. They're getting their fingers in all sorts of pies, aren't they, Amazon? But yeah, the damage meter is absolutely pointless during a pull. The only time it used to be useful was when snapshotting was a thing. Sometimes you could actually sensibly use them then at the start of a fight, but generally speaking, no. Not anymore. I find no use for them anymore. Yeah, I don't mind it so much when it's on farm, and because I don't care then. Do I recommend reading The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings? I always recommend reading The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings books, as well as all the other books as well. At least, I mean, there are some... I mean, the Silmarillion is very heavy going. You definitely don't want to read that until you've read Lord of the Rings and Hobbit. Did Paladins ever have battle reses? Yes and no. We weren't supposed to. We didn't actually have an ability battle res, but in vanilla, before they changed it, again, this is something else they changed, it was possible on a boss fight to remain out of combat. If you didn't heal anyone that was in combat and you didn't go near a mob or anything like that, you could stay out of combat. And what that allowed you to do was move around the outside edge of the boss area. On some boss fights, you couldn't stop mechanics hitting you. Not just Gar, there were other ones as well, like Major Domo Executors as well. So yeah, there were some fights where you could stay out of combat and you could res people up and you still wouldn't be in combat. So yeah, we could. It was a really crap job to have as well. It's an appalling job to have. Fortunately, I wasn't given this job. I did it like once when I was a trial. It's not a job you really gave to a good healer, because what's the point? You might as well have them heal. Oh, we had a paladin do it in our guild, but not a good one. Wasn't a good one. They were just about good enough to... Yeah, we had a res. Of course we have a res. I mean, some claim that they didn't. No, we didn't have a combat res. But you didn't need to. If you stayed out of combat, you could res normally. But they did stop that partway through vanilla. But that was like... It was certainly worked in Molten Core before we even got to Blackwing Lair. And this was at a time when Blackwing Lair was technically out, because Blackwing Lair came out... It would have, from point of view of being a European, came out really early. I remember coming across Blackwing Lair doing an Upper Blackrock Spire run as like a relatively fresh level 60. And the group I was with, we didn't know what, because you could get into the portal in there. And we just went in and did Razor Gore and got ourselves killed. Straight away. Immediately. Well, this is the difficulty they've got. They've got to decide where they pitch it. Obviously, something like that was at no time was an intended mechanic. I mean, these days you would call it an exploit. All right, thank you, Manav. How do I feel about there being 3 leveling zones? Not happy. I didn't like 4 leveling zones in Legion, and even given that there was enough to do, just the fact, it's not a case of how big the zones are and how many quests there are, it's the fact that there's only 3. Each zone has its own particular, like, theme. Now, if you don't like one of them, You're a bit stuffed. Because I can't imagine it's going to be comfortable leveling up in only 2 of those zones. If you can't miss out a zone that you just don't like the feel of, that's very restrictive. So I don't like it at all. But it is what it is. That's what they're going to do. How long do I think it will take for the world first Ragnaros kill? Not very long at all. I don't know. I suppose it depends on how many people go at it. I mean, there's no renown to be gained from doing it, surely. The thing is, though, with Ragnaros, again, it's this careful pitching of it. How do you pitch it? Because you needed a certain amount of fire resistance for it. So, is it actually feasible in a week? It may not be feasible in a week. Because you've got to bear in mind, the materials to make the... Not only do you need the rep to be able to make the fire resist gear from Thorium Brotherhood... You've actually got to have the materials to do the crafting as well. That's quite a lot of farming of molten core, so I don't think you could do it in one reset. I mean, I might be wrong, but I don't think you... I think you've actually got to farm it a bit. Because you need the... What were they called now? There's 2 types of things. Fiery cores and some... There were 2 things that you could get from dark iron nodes in molten core that had a good chance to drop in molten core. Like... They had a really, really low chance to drop outside of molten core. And there wasn't much dark iron nodes anyway. There was like Searing Gorge, the occasional bit in Burning Steps, and Blackrock Depths itself, and, you know, and obviously molten core. So I think... Well, you could get people to level up to 60 quickly. You know, if you went at it, you could do that. But... It would... If it's even possible to do, because like I say, the amount lava course, thank you. The amount of stuff you have to turn into Thorium Brotherhood to get exalted is phenomenal. An insane amount of stuff, and then you've got to farm the materials for people to actually craft the gear. On Nostalrius Elysium, Nax only took a few weeks to clear, apparently. Again, I don't know how they did those things. Like, it depends where you pitch it. Are you pitching it at the point... Are you pitching at the point where they can get the catch-up gear really quickly? Because you don't have to kill Ragnaros, of course. If you were just going to gear up for Nax Rammus, you wouldn't have to kill Ragnaros. To begin with, anyway. You could do clear up to Ragnaros. Do Onyxia's Lair. Do Blackwing Lair. Wait till you outgear Ragnaros, then go back to Ragnaros. Not worried about the fire resist so much. I mean, there's fire resist on the tier gear as well. Because that's another thing you've got to bear in mind. The bosses, when bosses drop tier, they drop a maximum of 2 pieces of tier. And it's not tokens. It's tier for a particular class. 8 classes for each faction. Because that's another thing as well. Alliance are not going to get shamans. So you're not going to have heroism. Or there's no such thing as heroism. They call it bloodlust. And Horde are not going to get paladins. So you're not going to get any blessing of salvation. So you'll have to watch your threat, Horde. Well, everyone has to watch the threat. But Horde especially will have to watch their threat. And these people need to realise this. Do you think they'll let you obtain the old remove stuff again? Yes, I do. I don't think that the accounts would be connected, though. I don't think that it would show up on your feats of strength on the main WoW stuff, though. I think it will be separate. But yes, I think that will be. It wouldn't be a vanilla thing if they didn't bring in the old stuff that you can't, like the knack stuff. Ultimately, is what you're talking about. Shames didn't get lost till 70. Oh, really? Oh, is it not a thing in vanilla? Okay, fair enough. Well, Horde are not going to get Blessing of Salvation, because that was definitely a thing, because I had to do it. What do I think of LFR and Taurus being the same as Heroic Tomb Gear? Are the gaps too substantial between tiers? Yes, but that's the way it is now, and that's the way it's been for some time, that when a new tier comes out, the old tier is obsolete. The way they've tried to stop it being obsolete is with Titan Forging, but effectively it is. Which is a good thing, really, because I don't fancy being encouraged to have to do an old tier whilst I'm doing the new tier. But it is, I mean, you know, the normal gear is the same as Mythic Tuma Sargeras. So anything that's better itemised is almost an automatic upgrade. Blessing of Salvation, I think, was worth more than Wind Fury, realistically. Because remember, you couldn't go full out DPS in Vanilla. Because threat was a real issue. So I think probably, I've got no maths to back it up, but I strongly suspect Blessing of Salvation allowed people to do more damage than they would have done with Wind Fury. Plus, of course, you could put Blessing of Salv... Did they have that? Did they have a threat reducing totem? But wouldn't, if it was an air totem though, they wouldn't be able to have that up at the same time as Wind Fury. So you'd have to have 2 shamans, wouldn't you, in that group? And it's only party wide, wasn't it? Whereas one paladin could put Blessing of Salvation on the whole raid. It was a pain in the ass, but they could do with that. Totem twist. Well, that's still only party wide though, isn't it, still? And that's not a job I would fancy doing. I had to do enough of that in Warhammer Online when they had the Chaos Warrior. And Chaos Warrior had auras, and you had lots of them, but each one lasted a certain amount of time, but with a cooldown before you could use another aura. But what it basically meant was, if you cycled between them, you could keep 3 auras up at once, but it meant you had to keep cycling between. That was basically twisting your auras. Absolute pain in the arse doing that. Like, amazing I didn't get RSI. But no, I certainly wouldn't fancy doing that. But it was just party wide though, wasn't it? I think it was party wide all the way up until Cataclysm, wasn't it? These things. You had party buffs even in Wrath. In which case you would still need 1 each group, which you're not going to have. Unless you kick another class out of it. So that'd be like 8 shamans. No, not everything was Raid Wyvern Wrath unless it came later on, because I specifically remember in Naxxramas insisting that the Draenei was in my group so that I could have the plus 1% hit. So unless that changed partway through Wrath, that was not the case. You would waste Wind Fury on a tank group. Well, that then would also make your tank squishier, because I remember, obviously I can't speak for how Horde were in Vanilla, but in Alliance Guilds, the way we did it, our tank groups, you'd have 2 that were basically your main tanks, and each of those main tank groups would have in it a Warlock for the stamina buff from the Imp, and then I suppose you could put a Shaman in there. But again, that's waste. We wasted them, at least. I suppose there's no risk of wasting it on a gnome, I guess. I don't know how they organise things, though. But we used to just put healers in there. We have a Paladin, a Priest, a Druid, and a Warlock to buff them. And it was always, as well, it was a social hierarchy thing, because the best Druid, Warlock, Paladin and Priest would be in the first group with the main tank, and the second best of each of those would be in the second group with the second main tank, which was a stupid system, because actually you wanted your best healers doing raid healing, right? Because tank healing was a piece of piss. You just targeted the tank and you pressed some buttons, whereas you had to have some awareness to raid heal. So I always said I was better off raid healing than main tank healing. The ideal job for main tank healer for both vanilla and TBC, the ideal candidate was someone who turns up all the time and so has really good gear, but has a potato for a brain. Get them on tank healing and get the ones who've got some intelligence on raid healing. Do I think the reintroduction of raid-wide class buffs and BFA will stop the class stacking we've seen in Legion? It could encourage it. The problem with some of these, I mean, obviously they can refine them. When I look at the actual raid cooldowns, so to speak, well, some of them are just that. They're cooldowns that seem to last a certain amount of time. Some of them are targeted that last an hour. Some of them are just like auras that may be passively always on. The problem is that if you've got a class that puts a buff on the raid that lasts an hour, you only need one of that class. If you've got someone that has something that has an effect that lasts a certain amount of time, a short amount of time, well, you can take several of that class and get the benefit. So it could make it worse. I really don't like this, this class-specific buff thing. I think it could make it worse. But we have to see it. But what they should do, they should all make them the same type of thing, as in, if anyone's going to have something you just put on the raid and it lasts an hour, then everyone should be that. Or if it's going to be one that lasts a short amount. Mind you, then the other problem is, if any of them last just a short amount of time, even if you make all of them do that, some are going to be better than others. And again, you're going to take the class because, oh, well, you know, if someone's got, like, is it Death Knights that get the ability that means you get some leech or something like that for an amount of time. Paladins is the increase, which at first when I looked at it and thought Paladins is just increased armor, I thought, what the hell is that? But then I am assured that it also includes reduced magic damage as well. So it's just basically damage reduction. Now, that being the case, that could also be really powerful. Some others you might think, well, I can do without that. I don't really need that. Like a movement speed one. Hunters get aspects of the pack or something, a movement speed. On some fights, that might be quite useful. On most fights, you're going to think probably not. You can do without that. So I think some classes are going to get screwed by this. And some other ones are you're going to be wanting several of them for, again, no good reason. We want to, so yeah, it can encourage class stacking. Manav, I don't think we'll have to put up with the 5-minute buffs. 30-second seals was still there in TBC. I mean, that's just the way it is. But the 5-minute buffs, I think, because they talked about setting it, I think they'll set it after patch 1.9, which is when they brought in Greater Blessings, which lasted for 15 minutes. And if you put it on someone, the whole class got buffed with it. So you only had to do it 8 times and it lasted the full fight. That's what I think they will do. That would be fine. For which you had to buy a symbol of kings, but, you know, whatever. The buffs will mean that you will have at least one of each class, though surely. No, not necessarily. If it's a class that doesn't bring a lot into the personal utility, and you can do without their aura for that fight, because it's not particularly useful for that fight, you will do away with them in favour of more of another class. So, again, the nuts and bolts are in exactly what they produce. But you can't come up with 12 buffs that are all going to be maddeningly useful on every fight. You're going to have some that are better. And as I say, if it would be different if they were all just buffs that lasted an hour and you can have one of them. There was no way to get any benefit of having multiple of the class for the sake of this thing. Then it would be different. Then it would be fine. I mean, some would still be better than others. But at least it would... So it would be a problem for Mythic Plus Dungeons, say. But for raiding, yes, it wouldn't be as big a problem. But the way it is at the moment, it looks like a problem to me. I think Nithog was the first world boss I ever did. I think that was the one that was up when I first got to level 110. If I remember correctly. But they did say they want to spread out the utility better. I'm not convinced I've got any great faith that they will. But again, we'll have to... And that's the sort of thing as well where you might not find out what they intend with that right till the end. It's not the sort of thing that necessarily has to be done at the start of the beta process. So, and that's the annoying thing about, you know, classes really. When you know there's an issue with it, you know Blizzard knows there's an issue with it, but they don't fix it quickly. So then it's like, well, what exactly are you going to do with this thing? Like the Greater Blessing of Might, I always remember from, right at the start of Legion Alpha. And I looked at it and I thought, this is a weird thing. And then they announced how it intended to work, which wasn't how it was actually working in the PTR. In the PTR, it was working like a buff, but it wasn't intended to. And they explained how it was intended to work, and I was appalled by this. But the problem was, because they didn't make it work properly until almost Legion launched. So there was a good 8 months where it was not working as they said it would work, which meant that you had all the people who don't know a lot about Ret Paladins, big streamers and YouTubers, stuff like that, describing it in the completely incorrect way. So people thought it was actually quite a good ability. Annoying. See you later, no fear. So talk about utility balance as well as talk about the viability of the battle res in Mythic Plus. Do you see battle res changing in BF8? I do, because they've already mentioned it. They've already talked about the issue that maybe they need a raiding style limit on battle reses for Mythic Plus. So I can see that changing, yes. Because they have talked about that. They've actually acknowledged that as an issue. And they've got plenty of time to deal with that issue. So I can absolutely see that changing. It still may not change people's attitudes in terms of take, because it's, you know, you can't just think, oh, we're going to have limited battle reses, so there's no point in taking lots of people battle reses. Well, there's no point in taking one person with a battle res, because what if that's the person that dies? Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know how much it would affect people's thinking there. We might still see all druid groups, because you don't know who's going to die. You were sad to see Law's tweets yesterday. Oh, did he tweet something yesterday? Have I missed some of his hilarious tweets? What did he say? About him and devs get a lot of death threats. Oh, dear. Yeah. I mean, obviously most of them will just be people doing the sort of threats that they do on the internet. I think that comes with anyone. You even get like big YouTube vloggers, don't you? They get death threats. And sometimes they get people coming to their house, which is even worse. Whereas you would think with someone like this, it's probably more likely bluster. I don't think we want a battle res. Really. I don't need a battle res. Because again, they keep beating the drum of they want to see more unique abilities. So I don't think any ability that is already owned by several classes, I don't see them giving it to even more classes anytime soon. I also hope the retribution buff is going to disappear, or at least they take away the damage part of it. I'm going to have a few drums that I'm going to beat as soon as the Battle for Azeroth beta comes out, whether I'm in it or not. And there's certain things that I'm going to keep going on about, and I'm not going to stop going on about it. One of them is the retribution passive. If that is not removed, or at least have the damage component taken out, I'm going to go mad on that. You want your Fear Ward back. Do Priests not have Fear Ward anymore? Is that gone? I haven't played Priests in ages. Mistweavers are quite interesting. They just don't have any big, like, special thing. I mean, they've got Revival. That's like an AoE lay on hands, but it's not that brilliant, is it? It was good in MOP. It was really good for sniping the healing. Only Disc Priests and Mistweavers are without any kind of battle res or failsafe. Don't Disc Priests get barrier? That's fairly beefy. Mistweavers get Cocoon. I don't know how good that is. What's the Retribution passive? When someone dies for 20 seconds, we get 20% increased damage and 30% reduced damage taken. When I first got into Alpha, it was 100% extra damage. Then they nerfed it to 50% extra damage. It just went down and down and down. And the problem with it is that... in fact, hang on. I can show you what the problem with it is. Let's find a web page here. Except this is always... Oh, actually, no. Do you know what? It's always really fiddly doing it in here. I'm just gonna find an image that I want. Might take a minute or two. Yeah, I mean, Mistweavers certainly give the strong impression of they don't have the really big, powerful thing. Let's see here. Right, okay. Where's my image editor? Cocoon, yeah, I don't think Cocoon is quite on the same level as, say, Aura Mastery or Devotion or whatever it's called these days. Or Spirit Link Totem. Love a good Spirit Link Totem. Right, so Retribution passive, here we go. Practical demonstration. So these are my mythic logs for Sisters. I don't have loads of them, I don't really do much because I didn't need much gear with farm stuff. So I sat out a lot. But those are them. Now, guess which ones loads of people died on. 2 of those fights were the result of just carnage in the raid with like half the raid dead. Not complete. It's the most fun healing spec in your opinion. It is quite fun. I haven't played it much. I played it a little bit in the Legion Alpha, not much. I did play it in Mop and Wad, though, as Mistweaver, just to get into LFRs quickly. But it can be fiddly, though, at times. With the... Do you still do the manatee thing? To manage your mana? Can't remember. But yeah, which 2 fights would we guess has been the ones where loads of people died? Top 2, exactly right. It was... And that's exactly, and that's what it does to you. You know, the top, like, rankings passes, whatever you want to call them, are when your raid dies. And that's all there is to it. That's as simple as that. So, yes, that is the downside of it. I mean, at first Blizzard said that it would have... Hiya, Sharpie. They said it would have no effect on gameplay. And then it did. On the very first raid boss. The very first raid boss, some Ret Paladins were cheating the hell out of Nethendra by taking advantage of this. Doing stupid damage. Then they came around to the fact, alright, maybe it has an effect. But people don't deliberately game it. Of course they do. All the time. So... hopefully they'll finally come to the conclusion that yes, it has an effect and people game it. Maybe we should. They'll still see, I mean, if they can still keep the Retribution passive if they want. Just change it to damage reduction, because then that has no effect on logs. it might be screwing over a few healing logs. That's about it. And everyone's happy. Yes, basically. Well, there was actually a weird thing on Nathendra, which obviously was a bit of an exploit. I think what was happening on Nathendra is it was something to do with if people died with a mind control, but you were mind controlled or something, you got to keep your retribution passive for the pull. For the new pull when the boss came back again. Something weird happened anyway. Holy priest can't move while channeling him. No, well, that's channeling for you, isn't it? No, but they have also. But if I say the problem is if you look at them, if you like look at top percentiles, always you will see a high uptime on retribution, the passive, like on every boss, because that's how it works. You know, in fact, it's a strategy whereby, especially if you have a couple of retribution paladins in the raid, if you're on a tight DPS check coming to the end of a fight, especially if you've got battle reses to spare, it's beneficial to have people sacrifice themselves and get battle resed, so that they can get the damage buff. Or if it's literally on the last, you know, this boss is going to go berserk in half a minute. You know, and let's say there's a healer spare that's not really doing anything, they might as well kill themselves for the extra damage. Again, especially if you've got 2 rets in there. So for that even to be a strategy is means that people are actually taking advantage of it. It's not flavor. They just said it would be a bit of extra flavour. It's not. And the thing is as well, you ask yourself this: it has to be. They must be taking it into account. Because if it was just flavour, you'd look at some of these people with like 30% uptime on it. How are they not miles ahead of anyone else's damage? I mean, there's a good chance they'll be at the top or near the top of damage on most boss fights. But they won't be screaming ahead of anyone. I mean, 30% uptime with 20% extra damage or 30% uptime is like 6% extra damage. Why aren't they doing 6% more than other people? But anyway, that's just that. Well, there does at the moment, but there's been previous times in Legion where people would take several. Even, you know, top guilds would take a couple sometimes. And Taurus, again, if they don't do anything different, Rets are looking quite good in Antaurus. But we'll have to see. I'm sure they'll change something. They can't allow that to happen. They have said, though, there are some, even though they're not going to do wholesale changes of specs, there are some specs they're going to be making significant changes to, it sounds like. Because they talked about the fact that they've redone Feral Druids. They've got Disc Priests in a place where they quite like it now. And they mentioned something else, I don't know what, might have been Frost Mages or something. And they've got their eye on a few other specs to maybe look at. I don't know which ones, they didn't say. And they've also talked about the fact they're still not quite sure. I mean, it does sound like they might do rather more to some specs than they gave the impression of by saying they're not going to do any more major stuff. Because they're still saying that they don't really know which should be the class-defining abilities that individual classes have. How many Rets in my guild? Just me at the moment. We did have another whose class changed to Mage, because at the time we were making that decision, that looked like the better bet. It still probably will be the better bet. You can't wait for the pre-patch to see which class you're going to play next expansion. Well, whichever's more fun to play. Okay. I mean, if you sign up for beta, you might get in beta. If you want, not everyone wants to get in beta, it has to be said, because, you know, some people don't want the spoilers. If they want to award this support play for Ret, why not change the passive to use, you know, lay on hands, blah, blah, blah. grants you X amount. I don't get sacrifice. They took Blessing of Sacrifice away from Rets. Bye-bye. Disappeared. I don't get anything. Thresholds like lay on hands must heal at least 50% of target's HP. You would game that though, that's the thing. You wouldn't use it to save it. Like, I have sometimes used lay on hands. And there have been some times when I've sort of thought I've possibly saved someone by doing it. But you can never be absolutely certain. You can't, as a Ret, ever be sure you've saved anyone with a lay on hands. Because for all, unless there's no healers left alive, in which case, yeah, all right, you use it on the tank when they get low. Or when they get below half health, because it won't heal them up to full anyway. But it would encourage you, instead of using lay on hands properly, it would encourage you to use it with your system. As soon as anyone dropped below 50% health, you would instantly snipe it and get your damage buff. So it would stop you saving it for when it might be needed for some useful purpose. What's wrong with Feral at the moment? Apparently nothing. Apparently they're delighted with Feral. But I think it was the case that with Feral before the changes, that very few players were able to play Feral well. I mean, we had one in our guild who was. But apparently there was only like a few dozen that were able to play it well, and everyone else had a terrible time with it. So they changed it to make it a bit easier. To play at a decent level, should we say. And apparently people are delighted with it now. Well, no, most people won't be lucky with it. You'll just have to see. Druid, yeah, I still haven't leveled up my Druid yet. Again, it might be one of those things on the list for Christmas. I still need to level up my Shaman though, so I can get that Shaman mount. I'm not going to fancy having to do all that Broken Shore Cobblers for the mount, but, you know, I will. Huge difference if you're using the easy targets and the difficult rotation. Oh, it will be for any class, obviously. You know, any class requires a high degree of skill to play at the very top level. I think the issue is that you want classes in general to at least have one DPS spec that you can get good performance out of playing it at an acceptable level, shall we say. And I got the impression that the Feral one, that the bar was a bit too high for even... It was like you either do really good damage or you do crap damage. I don't know whether that's true or not, but you know, that seemed to be the way it was perceived, even by Blizzard. Oh, I've got my Druid to 101 at least, until I got it lost in the order hall. I can't find my way out now. It's too big, and everything just looks like trees. Yeah, the mount is amazing for the Shaman one, so I definitely want to get that. I want to get that leveled up. But again, at the moment, I'm not really finding the time. Christmas is quite a good time because everyone else is all busy doing off family stuff. So naturally, everything wanes. The guild activity will wane. We'll not be raiding at Christmas because everyone will bugger off. Should be miserable with their families. So I will actually have time to... So I'll probably try and level up a couple of things really quickly. Druid and Shaman may well be top of the list. Maybe Priest. Maybe just everything that I still haven't got to level 110. Because I want them all for level 110 before the beta comes out. Because, actually no, to begin with on beta you can't copy your characters. You have to just create a pre-made character. But as soon as you can copy your characters, I would like to be able to do that. For various classes. I'm not really bothered about any of the other class mounts. I'm only really bothered about the Shaman one. Yeah, but 3 hours is an awful long time to be on the Broken Shore. And that also probably counts on you remembering what to do. I just made it up on my Paladin. Do I ever plan on doing viewer raids? I don't know. I think I need a lot more viewers. Wait with leveling your last classes, make new allied raids. No, I've already got classes at level 100. These alts are already made. I already have them. They're just not at 110 yet. They've only got to level through the Legion stuff. I'm not starting from... I will start one character from level 1 again, and that will be for the when I do the beginner series, which I was starting to do my beginner's guide to WoW series, but then and I'd got some footage for it, and then they announced this zone scaling, so I thought, no, I'll wait for that first, because that's quite important. So that's on the back burner now. But that's going to be a priest, a ginger dwarf priest, which I had already made. I'll delete it and make it again. But I don't know. See, the thing is, I've got to go and delete a load of... my character slots are all full. I don't mean on my account. I mean on the realm. I mean the whole account. But I've got so many level 1s that I used to use to try and... Like when you try and recruit people, sometimes you'd see on WoW Progress, people would put their battle tag in their notes. A lot of the time they wouldn't, so you'd have to create a character on their account to actually go and talk to them, or at least send them an in-game mail. So I've got loads of level 1s everywhere. Nowadays, WoW Progress actually has a box for you to put it in, so more people tend to put their battle tag in now. So I don't need that as much. Am I ready for the rebuff? Are you ready for the rebuff? Died in raids again with the class buffs coming back. A rebuff wouldn't be a big deal. It depends. See, I don't think the Paladin one's going to be like that. Some of them are, some of them are not, is how it sounds to me. Now, of course, they could change it so that they are all like that in the interest of fairness. But at the moment, it doesn't sound like that's what it is. Couldn't they just be auras? There's downsides to auras as well. Because, like you say, it's annoying to rebuff when someone else dies. If it's an aura and that person dies, everyone loses it. That is why when we used to have these, like in WoD, for example, the mastery buff could be provided by 2 classes. Shamans could provide it as an aura passively. Paladins could, it was Blessing of Might that you'd put on the raid. I always put Blessing of Might on the raid. Because what if the Shaman dies? Right? Then it's gone. Whereas if I put Blessing of Might on people, everyone still keeps it. Doesn't matter whether I die, doesn't matter whether someone else died, everyone keeps it. And if someone gets res back up, yes, I have to put it back on. An Iron Dwarf Ginger Priest. No, because they start from level 20. If I'm going to do a beginner series, I have to start from level 1. Yeah, scaling is cool. That's what I mean. If it was not coming till BFA, then I would have left it forever. It's because it's coming in 7.3.5 that I just thought I'll just leave it for now. But we don't know when 7.3.5 is coming out. It's not coming out with Antorus. It might not even be coming out before Christmas. I don't know. It might be in the new year. Oh, the sub races. I don't know when the sub races are coming out. I would have thought that was 8.0. I don't think that's 7.3.5. I'd be very surprised. Because there's a load of content to come with it. Silver Moon. Oh, so 141 is the top rank on Silver Moon, is it? That's surprising. Used to have quite a few good ones. Oh well. Specifically the only one as well that's like a PvE, proper PvE role. Yeah, I'd agree with that, Manav, that I don't think, you know, some of this stuff they announce has to be for the expansion, otherwise they're not going to have anything new for the expansion, are they? So I think what we're going to get in 7.3.5 in terms of what they announced was the zone scaling and that Silithus scenario thing, except instead of giving Azeroth, it'll give something else, probably AP. That's the equivalent. Hi, Nico. Well, for the beginner series, as I say, we're not going to have the allied races out then anyway. So it'll just be a normal ginger dwarf priest. You're expecting pre-ordering BFA will give you early access to sub races similar to what they had with Demon Hunters. They might. That's possible. It wasn't very much access, though. It wasn't very much early access, was it? Because I don't think it even came out with a pre-expansion patch. I seem to remember I only got like a couple of weeks out of it. I can't remember though. Maybe it was a bit more. But I only remember getting like a couple of weeks. Because I was going to use that as my split raid alt, which I did to begin with. I, along with the other person that was going to do that, was allowed to gear it up in Hellfire Citadel. So we got pushed through once, but only once each. So that sort of suggests to me that we only had a couple of weeks on it. Yeah, I thought that, Nico, 2 weeks before Legion. So you didn't get much advanced use out of them. Just enough to get them leveled and geared, really. So if they do the same thing with the allied races, it allows you to get them geared, I suppose, and ready. Like, get up to, if you spend a fair amount of time on it, get it up to level 110, which I suppose is all right. But beyond that, it doesn't really give you much time to properly get them set up. But that will be quite a while, won't it? If they don't, let's say they do release Battle for Azeroth in a year's time from now, or roughly, like mid to late November. The pre-expansion patch will be out round about October, maybe Halloweenish. It's going to be a long old time. Did I kill Jaden? No. No, we didn't. We got into phase 3 more times. Well, in the second half of the raid. The first half of the raid was a complete disaster. Second half of the raid, we got into phase 3 a few times. Unfortunately, we kept getting to phase 3 and then dying immediately. Like 6 people would die. Which we need to stop. Well, we need to get into P3 a bit more on Wednesday, and then we need to just not die straight away. And then hopefully we will kill it on Wednesday. You could get 110 in 2 weeks if you could like spend your weekends doing it or something. Because you've got heirloom gear, remember? If you're a player now, you've got heirloom gear. The Mirror has a detailed article about the new WoW expansion. Surely not. XP potions, are they that easy to come by? What I'll do though, oh, those elixirs you mean? They're the ones you can't die with those though. And they're also not that easy to come by either, are they? What I tend to use those when I get a few of those is because I boost my own characters. I like boost them through dungeons. So I drag them through a few dungeons with, like when I've got a few dungeons that I can do all at once and they're quite close to each other and they've got several quests in them, I boost it through those. You don't need to work it above level 99 either, because the Legion itself goes quite quickly. But what I'll do, I'll still be on for a little bit in terms of the actual stream, but just for the purpose of YouTube, I'll just close it off here. I'll just do my usual because it's about 2 hours now. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe especially, and share for further content. And until next time, I'll see you later.